In the heart of an old, forgotten town stood a gloomy mansion with boarded-up windows and creaking doors. It was known as the Blackwell House. The legend spoke of a wealthy yet reclusive family who lived there centuries ago. The head of the family, Harold Blackwell, was a prominent figure, notorious for his strange experiments. Rumors whispered that he performed rituals in his quest to understand something beyond human comprehension. His wife, Eliza, rarely left the house, and their 3 children were almost never seen in public. Locals avoided the mansion, even during the day, claiming to hear eerie sounds, like children crying or muffled whispers, emanating from the property. One day, the family simply vanished. There were no bodies, no signs of struggle, only a dining table in the living room with an unfinished meal left behind. Since then, the house had remained abandoned, but those who dared to enter either never returned or came back different. They spoke of doors leading to nowhere, chilling invisible touches, and shadows that moved without light. A group of friends decided to defy the rumors and prove that the old stories were nothing more than fiction. Liam, 19, the group leader, an adventure seeker and the main instigator of the idea. He constantly looked for ways to test himself and believed fear was a foolish concept. Sophie, his best friend, cautious and pragmatic. She had a fascination with the paranormal but was more focused on capturing creepy photos for her social media. Jake, the group's jokester, always trying to lighten the mood, even in the most tense situations. He was convinced the stories were just myths and planned to make a funny TikTok video out of the whole ordeal. Mia, a quiet and mysterious girl whom the friends jokingly referred to as the witch. She seriously studied the occult and believed the legends of the Blackwells had some truth to them. Andy, the newcomer to the group, introduced by Liam. His nervous and shy demeanor made him an easy target for Jake's jokes. The friends decided to throw a party in the mansion to create a historic event and prove that the scary tales were just old wives' tales. Liam declared, "Come on, are you afraid of ghosts? This is our chance to make history in this town." The night before the party, the group gathered near an old bridge, just a 10-minute walk from the house. A local resident, an elderly woman named Mrs. Graves, approached them with a warning. "Don't go there. The Blackwell House is a trap. Those who challenge it either come back broken or never come back at all." But her words only fueled Liam's excitement. He laughed loudly. "A trap?" Mrs. Graves, we're 21st century kids, not characters in a horror movie. We'll film everything and show there's no such thing as ghosts. Sophie recorded the moment on her phone, adding a sarcastic comment to boost her content for social media. Jake put on a ghost mask, joking, "The scariest thing we'll find there is spiders." However, Mia was noticeably silent. She stared at the dark windows of the house on the horizon, her fingers clutching a pendant around her neck. "This isn't just a legend," she said. "If you go, don't split up and don't touch anything that feels wrong." Andy hesitated but eventually agreed to join. Ignoring all the warnings, the group set off toward the mansion, laughing and planning how they'd debunk the myth of the Blackwell House. On the horizon, the sun was setting, casting long shadows over the house. The wind whispered through the overgrown trees, a sound that seemed almost like voices. But the friends didn't know that this whisper would soon become their worst nightmare. When the friends reached the Blackwell mansion, they were greeted by a massive, creaking gate wrapped in thick ivy. The old stone stairs leading to the entrance looked as though they might collapse at any moment. The house's huge windows were dark and gaping, like empty eyes. On one of the upper floors, a shattered mirror reflected a faint sliver of moonlight. "This is creepy, isn't it?" Jake joked, pretending to shiver. "The only creepy thing is how dirty this place is," Sophie replied, snapping a few photos of the facade. With a confident smirk, Liam pushed open the heavy wooden door. It creaked loudly, the sound echoing into the eerie silence. Inside, the air was thick and stale, filled with the smell of old wood, mold, and something else, a faintly sweet metallic tang. They entered a large living room with high ceilings. The walls were covered in dark wallpaper that had peeled away in places, revealing cracked plaster beneath. A massive fireplace stood in the center of the room, adorned with intricate carvings. felt like the dead, cold heart of the house. "This is even cooler than I imagined," Mia said as she examined the room. Her fingers brushed over the surface of an old table, leaving trails in the thick layer of dust. Large mirrors hung on the walls, framed in heavy metal. Their surfaces were dim, yet they seemed to reflect more than just the room. Sophie, recording a video, paused in front of one of the mirrors and thought she saw a shadow flicker across its surface. "Did you see that?" she asked, glancing back at the others. "See what?" Liam asked, carrying an old couch to the center of the room. "Nothing," Sophie muttered, deciding it was just a trick of the light. Other parts of the house were filled with scattered furniture, draped in dusty cloths and torn curtains. In one corner stood an old piano, its yellowed keys cracked in places. Mia approached it and ran her fingers over the keys, producing a horribly out-of-tune sound. "Well, that's definitely not in tune," Jake quipped, snapping a selfie with the piano in the background. The group decided to prepare the house for their party. Liam set up the speakers, Sophie laid out snacks, Jake tested his portable light for a makeshift disco ball, and Mia silently wandered, observing every corner. Andy, however, felt an overwhelming discomfort. His gaze kept returning to a dark corridor leading deeper into the house. He was certain he saw a shadow move there, but whenever he looked closer, the corridor remained empty. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Liam said, patting Andy on the shoulder. "No, it's just, this place feels off," Andy replied, trying to hide his unease. Meanwhile, Sophie noticed her phone, which she had placed on the table, was scrolling through photos on its own. She turned the screen off, but a few moments later, it lit up again, showing an old portrait of the Blackwell family, one she hadn't taken. "Jake, was that you?" she asked, thinking it was one of his pranks. "Yeah, sure. I'm such a tech genius I can control your phone with my mind," Jake laughed. Mia approached one of the mirrors and noticed something unusual. Her reflection didn't seem to match her movements. Her hand hesitated, but the reflection lagged behind, and her eyes in the mirror looked slightly off-center, as if staring elsewhere. She reached out to touch the mirror's surface, feeling a coldness that wasn't quite like glass, dry yet oddly warm. "This place isn't just a house," she whispered, glancing back at her friends. Things only got stranger. While setting up the speakers, Liam heard a faint whisper of his name coming from one of the rooms. He thought it was Sophie, but when he turned around, no one was there. Jake, climbing the stairs to the second floor to search for decorations, felt a strange draft despite all the windows being shut. Nearby, a portrait of an old man with hollow eyes fell off the wall. Jake chuckled, assuming it was just gravity, and propped it back up. "This house definitely needs a renovation," he joked, recording a quick video for social media. Still, each of them felt something was wrong. The mirrors, the whispers, objects moving on their own. It all seemed minor, yet it created an oppressive atmosphere of unease. "This is just our imagination," Liam said confidently when the group gathered by the fireplace. "Let's not psych ourselves out and make this party unforgettable." Everyone nodded, though no one dared to voice their true thoughts. The house, meanwhile, seemed to smile with its cracked walls, as if waiting for them to make their first mistake. Despite the eerie setting, the friends managed to create an almost festive atmosphere inside the mansion. Liam turned up the music on the speakers, and the thumping bass filled the grand living room. Sophie laid out snacks on an old, intricately carved table, while Jake danced in the center of the room wearing a ghost mask, making everyone laugh. "Well, who's scared of this house now?" he shouted, twirling a flashlight to mimic a disco ball. Mia sat quietly in the corner, sipping tea and observing her friends. Her gaze occasionally wandered to the mirrors on the walls, which seemed to shimmer faintly under the party lights. She didn't say anything, deciding not to spoil the mood. The lights went out suddenly, plunging the mansion into complete darkness. The lively atmosphere the friends had tried so hard to create vanished in an instant, replaced by an oppressive silence. The music that had been blasting through the speakers was gone, leaving only the creaking of the old floorboards beneath their feet. "All right, who's playing games now?" Liam shouted, trying to sound confident, though his voice wavered. The generator must have failed, Sophie said, switching on her phone's flashlight. Someone needs to check it. Any volunteers to come with me? Jake asked, trying to mask his unease with a smirk. Not me, Andy quickly replied, his voice trembling. Relax, it's just a technical issue, Liam said, though he didn't seem eager to investigate the cause himself. The darkness was almost palpable. The cold crept into the room, making the hair on the back of their necks stand on end. Sophie noticed her phone's flashlight flickering, as if something unseen was interfering with it. This isn't normal, she whispered. We need to leave, Mia said quietly, her voice firm, but the exit felt impossibly far away. The corridors they had walked through earlier were now cloaked in shadows, and the doors they had opened seemed to have vanished. As they argued about what to do next, the first disappearance occurred. Where's Jake? Sophie asked, her voice rising with panic. He was just here, Liam said, shining his flashlight toward the old fireplace where Jake had been standing. Jake, stop messing around, Liam called out, but his voice echoed back unanswered. Sophie approached the fireplace, illuminating the dusty floor. Faint footprints led to a door that had been locked earlier. Those are his footprints, Mia said softly. He's probably just trying to scare us, Liam muttered, though his conviction was fading. The group hesitated before opening the door, only to find an empty room. The walls were covered in faded symbols, and the air was heavy with the smell of decay. Dust coated the floor, undisturbed except for the footprints that ended abruptly in the middle of the room. This doesn't make sense, Sophie stammered. Minutes later, Andy disappeared. He had been standing near the entrance to one of the corridors, nervously fidgeting. When Liam and Sophie turned to check on him, he was gone. He was just here, right here, Sophie cried out, tears streaming down her face. This has to be a prank, Liam insisted, though his voice was breaking. It's not a prank, Mia snapped. The house is taking them. Liam turned to a nearby mirror and froze. In its reflection, he saw Jake and Andy standing in a dimly lit room, surrounded by shifting shadows. Their faces were blank, their eyes empty. This isn't real. This can't be real, Liam yelled, stepping away from the mirror. The house began to transform before their eyes. The corridors stretched and twisted. Doors appeared where there had been none, and others vanished entirely. The once familiar layout of the mansion had become a maze. It's alive, Mia said, her voice trembling. The house is playing with us. Sophie tried to use her phone, but the screen showed only static. The cameras she had set up earlier to document the night were no longer functioning, their footage replaced with nothing but white noise. We need to find a way out, Sophie said, clutching Mia's arm. But where is the exit? Liam asked, his frustration boiling over. We walked through these halls just a few hours ago. Mia stared into one of the mirrors and recoiled. She saw a scene from the past. The Blackwell family sitting around a table, their faces twisted in terror. Shadows danced around them, creeping closer. The house remembers, Mia whispered. What does it remember? Sophie asked, but Mia didn't respond. Liam opened a door, expecting another corridor, but instead, he was met with a black void. It was so dark that even the flashlight's beam couldn't penetrate it. This isn't possible, he muttered, stepping back. A chilling wind blew from the void, carrying with it a faint, menacing whisper. Close it, Mia shouted, and Liam slammed the door shut. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind them. Turning around, they saw a translucent figure, a woman in an old-fashioned dress, her face twisted in anguish. She raised a hand as if to speak, but disappeared before any words could be heard. The house had fully awakened, its walls pulsating with a life of their own. Every room, every hallway was a trap. Mirrors now reflected strange, impossible scenes. The friends running in panic, strange rituals, even glimpses of themselves, dressed differently and with unfamiliar expressions. Mia stopped before one of the mirrors and whispered, It's showing what was, And what will be? Sophie clung to Liam's arm. We have to find the way out. We can't stay here. We're already trapped, Mia said, her voice flat. The house won't let us go. Mia stood motionless in front of one of the large mirrors, staring at it as though she were trying to unravel its secrets. Fear flickered in her eyes, but there was also a sense of understanding. It was as if she knew more than she was willing to admit. It's alive, she whispered. Who's alive? What are you even talking about? Sophie asked nervously, her voice trembling. The house, Mia replied, turning to face the group. This isn't just a place. It's alive, it breathes. It feeds on our fears and our secrets. That's ridiculous, Liam snapped, though his hands were shaking. It's just an old, creepy house messing with our heads. No, it's more than that, Mia insisted. It sees everything we've tried to hide. It shows it to us, and everyone who comes here becomes a part of it. Sophie thought of the shadows in the mirrors, the strange disappearances, and her growing sense of dread. She couldn't deny that Mia was making sense. But why us? Why now? Sophie asked, her voice cracking. Mia's expression darkened. Because we're weak. Each of us has something the house can exploit. The walls around them began to emit a faint, whispering sound. It was like thousands of voices speaking at once, their words unclear, muffled, as though wrapped in fog. Do you hear that? Sophie asked, her voice barely audible. It's him, Mia said solemnly. The house is speaking to us. Andy, though still tense, was beginning to relax. He awkwardly joined in the dancing, his stiff movements eliciting more laughter. Liam, moving between everyone, encouraged them. That's the spirit. We're making this a night to remember. Even the eerie grand piano became part of the fun. Jake pretended to play a clumsy, off-key tune, drawing more laughter from the group. Maybe this time, the ghosts will actually get offended, he joked. But even in the midst of their laughter, there was an underlying sense of unease. It was as though the house was silently listening, waiting for them to lower their guard. The first troubling moment came when Sophie noticed her phone missing from the table. Okay, who took my phone? She asked, looking around. Must have been the ghosts, Jake teased with a grin. I'm serious, guys. This isn't funny, Sophie insisted, scanning the room. Relax, Liam said dismissively. You probably left it somewhere. We'll find it later. But that was only the beginning. A few minutes later, Liam's car keys, which he had placed on a windowsill, vanished. Then one of the snack bags Sophie had brought disappeared without a trace. All right, who's pulling this prank? Liam demanded, his voice tense as he searched the room. It's not us, Mia said quietly, her eyes fixed on the darkened corridor. Something is playing with us. Oh, come on, Mia, Jake scoffed, waving her off. Someone here is obviously messing around. It's just a joke. But the sense of unease was growing. Sophie noticed something odd in one of the mirrors. In the corner of the reflection, where there should have been an empty wall, she saw a faint shadowy figure. There's someone here, she whispered, her voice trembling. Enough already, Liam snapped, clearly irritated. No one is scaring me in my own house. In your house, Jake quipped sarcastically. Ignoring him, Liam approached the mirror, but when he looked into it, there was nothing unusual. Around midnight, when the party had been going on for hours, the group decided to take a group photo. They gathered around the old fireplace and set Sophie's phone on a timer to capture the shot. As they reviewed the photo, everyone froze. Standing among them in the picture was a tall, shadowy figure wearing a dark hat and a long coat, its face obscured by shadow. Who is that? Andy stammered, stepping back in fear. It's probably just a glitch, Sophie said, though her voice wavered. That's not a glitch, Mia muttered, her tone filled with dread. It's him. Who's him? Liam asked sharply, but Mia was already moving toward the mirrors. At that moment, the music abruptly stopped. The lamp hanging from the ceiling began to flicker, and the room's temperature plummeted, causing their breaths to turn visible in the air. This isn't funny anymore, Liam shouted, though his voice sounded hollow in the oppressive silence. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed from the dark corridor. A figure appeared in the doorway, a tall, shadowy silhouette resembling the one in the photograph. "Who are you? What do you want?" Liam demanded, but no answer came. The friends stared in stunned silence as the figure slowly began to move toward them. But just as quickly as it appeared, it vanished. "We need to leave. Right now," Sophie said, grabbing her bag with trembling hands. "No. This is just an illusion," Liam insisted, though his tone betrayed his growing fear. But deep down, they all knew this was no illusion. Something, or someone, was in the house with them, and it had only just begun to reveal itself. The whispering grew louder, and each of them began to hear something different. The house was peeling back the layers of their deepest fears and darkest secrets, exposing them like open wounds. "Liam," a voice that sounded eerily like his own murmured, "it's your fault your brother crashed. You told him to leave that night." Liam froze, his face draining of color. His hands began to tremble uncontrollably. "No, that's not true. I didn't," he stammered, his voice breaking. Sophie turned to him, her face a mix of shock and horror. "You never told me that," she whispered. "It's a lie," Liam shouted, but his voice lacked conviction. The whispers didn't relent, turning their focus to Sophie. "Sophie," another voice hissed, "you killed your dog. You left the door open, and it got hit by a car." "Shut up," Sophie screamed, clutching her ears as tears streamed down her face. Mia seemed to be the only one unaffected, her gaze fixed on the trembling walls as though searching for a way to silence them. "It's the house," she said. "It wants us to fight. It wants us to give up." Liam glared at her, his fear giving way to anger. "And what about you? What's it saying to you?" For a moment Mia was silent. Then, quietly, she said, "That I'm already a part of it." Sophie and Liam stared at her in shock. "What does that mean?" Sophie asked, her voice trembling. "It means I understand how it works," Mia replied. "But I don't know if I can stop it." Realizing they couldn't stay any longer, the friends decided to make a desperate attempt to escape. Liam grabbed a flashlight, his hands still shaking. "We'll just find the way out," he said, more to convince himself than anyone else. "This place can't change so much that we can't find the door." But as they moved, the house seemed to shift around them. Hallways stretched endlessly, doors that had once been there disappeared, and new ones appeared in their place. The familiar layout of the mansion was gone, replaced by an ever-changing labyrinth. "It's a maze," Mia said, her voice trembling. "It won't let us leave." Sophie, clinging to Mia's arm, suddenly saw something out of the corner of her eye, a shadow flickering on the wall. "Someone's here. I saw him," she cried. "It's a trap," Mia said calmly but firmly. Liam pressed forward, determined to lead them out. But as he opened one of the doors, he froze. On the other side stood his younger brother, covered in blood, staring at him with accusing eyes. "This is your fault," the figure said softly. "No, it's not. It's not real," Liam stammered, stepping back. But behind him there were no friends, he was alone. Mia pulled Sophie along, urging her forward. "Don't stop. If you listen to them, you'll never leave." But Sophie suddenly froze in place, her eyes wide with fear. "He's there, my dog. He's there," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "That's not him," Mia shouted, tugging on her arm. The house was crumbling around them. The floorboards cracked, the walls closed in, and the darkness became a suffocating force, swallowing everything in its path. "Run!" Mia screamed, her voice barely audible over the chaos. Mia tightly gripped Sophie's hand, pulling her through the endless maze of dark corridors. Their legs were giving out, their breathing growing more ragged, but they didn't stop. Behind them, footsteps and eerie whispers grew closer and closer. "We can't stop. Hold on to me," Mia yelled, her voice trembling with fear. Sophie, tears streaming down her face, could barely keep up. Before their eyes, the house's walls shifted, doors disappeared, and new ones appeared in unexpected places. The darkness felt alive, clinging to them, as if trying to hold them back. Suddenly, massive wooden doors loomed ahead, the exit. Mia summoned all her strength and pushed them open. Fresh air rushed into their faces. "We're almost there. Run!" Mia shouted, not letting go of Sophie's hand. They burst outside, collapsing onto the ground in front of the old house. Both were exhausted, but panic and adrenaline forced them to their feet. Without stopping or looking back, they fled from the cursed place, their legs carrying them farther and farther away. Mia and Sophie reached the road, where they finally stopped to catch their breath. Their hearts were pounding wildly, and their minds were in chaos. What was that? What is this place? Sophie cried through her tears. It's more than we could ever understand, Mia replied, glancing back the way they had come. She looked at the house once more, which now seemed quiet and harmless in the morning light. But they knew it was just an illusion. Back in town, they tried to explain to the locals what had happened, but their stories were so unbelievable that no one took them seriously. "The Blackwell House has claimed its victims again," people whispered, adding their ordeal to the growing legend of the cursed mansion. Over time, Sophie and Mia tried to return to their normal lives, but something inside them had changed. Sophie constantly felt as if someone was watching her. When she looked in the mirror, she thought she saw shadows flickering behind her. Mia became reclusive, withdrawing into herself. She scoured old books and searched for stories of similar occurrences, trying to make sense of what had happened. But the more she learned, the stronger the pull of the house became, and no one ever learned what became of Liam, Jake, and Andy. The police searched the house but found no trace of their presence. Local legends grew with new rumors. Some claimed the boys had been pulled into another dimension, while others believed their souls now resided in the house's mirrors. Mia and Sophie could never answer the question. What had happened to their friends? Sometimes they thought they could hear their voices in dreams or catch glimpses of their faces in fleeting flashes of memory. The Blackwell house remained standing. Its dark windows silently watched over the town, and the legends surrounding it only grew stronger. People claimed that at night, ghostly figures could be seen in the windows, and those brave enough to approach could hear the screams of those who had vanished within its walls. The ultimate question remained unanswered. Would anyone ever defeat the house, or would it remain an eternal trap for anyone who dared to challenge it? If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. This is just the beginning of the stories we'll uncover here at Horror Haven. Don't forget to subscribe for more chilling tales, and hit the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey into the unknown. Until next time, stay safe, or at the very least, stay in the light.